Hey, I'm not at home, I'm in Romania, and this is a pre-recorded video, so enjoy.
Right, since I'm going to take care of my dad, visit him, hang out with him a little bit, I thought I'll just prepare this video for you guys, so by the time you're seeing this, I am somewhere else, hopefully having a great time with my dad. But for this video, I thought, let me do another one of these insect car mech bug things. Concentrate more on the insect and the car in this case. And I am going to put it into one of the corners, probably that one there. You will see the ideation process for this sketch. And it was slightly different. I was going with a bug, and I wanted to see how I can incorporate, like switch the. I wanted to step away from the more leggy thing. Still stuck with it in the end. I like it too much, but I decided to not make the legs in this case, but make them sort of hover engine extensions. So you will see that at the edge of each leg there is sort of a hover engine, and then they have to move around to like properly balance the car. So yeah, that is what we're doing here, and I'm curious because drawing it out digitally is always easier, and it's a more stress-free step than putting it onto paper, and then you have sort of a more satisfying feeling, I guess, once you put these lines onto paper. I don't know, just the end result on paper looks slightly better to me. As you can see, I'm very much going for a slightly differently balanced look here. The big heavy engine in the front, and that way I can push the end of the car out into space, just hanging there. Hopefully that will look good, and that is a horrible line. Let us fix that a little bit. Which is nothing, like already it looks almost like it's supposed to be chrome, at least in my head it's supposed to be chrome, so it looks shiny and okay. But yeah, so this is where the interesting part starts, because I didn't detail it too much, also forcing myself a little bit to stay more loose with my ink lines. As you remember from my previous video, I was talking about how with drawing with inks, I feel a bit more, I wouldn't say limited, but I always want to have nicer, neater lines. And that becomes a little bit static and boring because of that, my drawings, and I want to avoid that if possible. So now, because of that, I drew a little bit of less detail in here, so a lot of it is still in my head, so I'm forced to introduce that detail with my pen. What I find also a little bit interesting is that I tend to go for old school looking 50s, 60s, maybe even somewhere 50s, 60s looking cars. And I don't quite know why. I mean, I know for sure that there has been plenty of influence in my youth where I saw these flying cars looking like this. The funny thing is that I wasn't the biggest fan of the Fifth Element, even though that's where we saw these sort of cars fly around the most. But I don't know if it was mainly Fifth Element or just general media in those days. But a lot of them picked up these old school looking cars as flying cars. And I guess that is just something that bore itself into my brain and doesn't want to let go. And every time I do something like this, maybe I just like the juxtaposition of the retro design of these cars together with ideas like flying cars or futurism. Retrofuturism in general is something that I do enjoy quite a bit. So I'm trying to avoid putting a line here just because I want that to stay as clean as possible. So with using these lines for the door, I'm trying to suggest that that is a bent surface indeed. And just like with the previous car, I was thinking, should I do a different type of door? But I decided to do the door that will open upwards. So I will need some sort of small hints that there are hinges going on up there. Doesn't need to be perfect, but just a slight suggestion. And then we can, like last time, we can do the door handle down here, which is a nice little differentiator in general. Now for the engine here, I was looking at some older V6 engines, but I'm also changing it quite a bit because I'm just coming up with a bunch of nonsense sci-fi elements that just look like something that would fit there, but obviously they make not too much sense, but they are just fun to draw. So coming up with all these sorts of little details is I guess what the drawing, at least for me, is all about. Creating something new, maybe out of something that's already there, and just having a good time with it. Something fun with these engines as well is that you can hide a lot of the detail by just cross-hatching a little bit, implying some shadow there. Also, cross-hatching, because of the busyness, can give you sort of an impression of detail. So it is good on several levels. Now what I have to think about a little bit here is this front area, because what I like to do is with these flying cars is still have sort of a bumper. Not sure if it would make sense, especially if you have a heavy engine block in the front like this, if you would smash into someone, to still have a bumper there, but I'm still gonna put one there just in case. I'm not happy with this bumper. I could have done something nicer, but I guess it will have to be the charm. What I'm also thinking about a little bit here, I wanted to have a radiator. There's something about an exposed radiator with its grills that I think looks cool on a car. The interesting challenge here is that the radiator will probably look somewhat similar to my shading, so I have to come up with an idea to make sure that it's not about being confused with just shading, but I want to differentiate it a little bit. So I'm gonna add these little notches here. Maybe that will help. It is about experimentation, right? So keep that in mind. And then this can be some sort of number platey situation there. Yeah, and I think this works. I think if I add them below as well, it should help. There we go. Okay, so I'm somewhat done with the engine. So now I will try and switch to the legs. And yeah, by somewhat done, you know that I'm going to probably switch back to them at one point, just because I like to pop back and forth. So we have the legs here. And I think I'm gonna do a little bit that I did last time, where I'm just, the lower part here, I'm not gonna fill in completely, just because it's relatively quite close to the edge. So I could have planned, because there's plenty of space here, so I could have drawn the whole thing a little bit higher there. But it is still a sketchbook, so there's a high possibility that at some point I will draw some extra things here. And the beetles that I was looking at, they had an interesting thinner at the edges where the joints actually are, and then thicker in the middle, and I quite like that, and I thought that would probably work quite well in this drawing as well. Construction wise, not sure. Just in general, you do not want to have thin pieces where your main joints are, because there's a lot of force being exerted there. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's the smartest thing, designing it like that. But cool factor wise, I think we have something good going here. So as you could see on my sketches before, I was a little bit lazy and I didn't draw out the legs or hover engine parts on this side of the car. So I am a little bit more inconvenient, I would say, because my life could have been a bit easier if I just sketched these out when I did the digital sketches. At least I would have had a better understanding of how to place these things here. But we work with what we create for ourselves. And this is what I did. So I will figure it out, I guess, because my expectation is that here is looking a bit this way, here is looking a bit this way, here is looking this way, and then there it will be looking backwards. So this one on that side we will probably not see at all. Not really sure about the perspective of this engine. It might be a little bit off, but the important part is that the main big perspective seems to be working together, and if I draw all of these in, pointing into different directions, just as I explained, it should be less of an issue. So let's see. All right, now with all the legs drawn, I do think it works. In the end, it looks pretty okay. And all I have to do is just strengthen some of the lines here and there and bring everything just a bit more together. We can add also a bit of more cross-hatching here and there. And I could look a little bit more at the balancing of the car. I feel like maybe something underneath here might look good, because if we're looking at the original design, I did have something there. So I might bring that. Okay, so as you can see, I did come in with my red pencil and added a bit more detail here in the brake. I like the car's flowiness because of the old lines that were in these designs, but I did want to break that up and bring a little bit of that cyberpunk, retrofuturism, whatever you want to call it in this case. I'm not sure, because usually you see it in cyberpunk where you have all sorts of it's not addendums but stuff that's added to the car, and I wanted to do that here, break up this nice flowy retro vibe of the car a little bit with some blocky shapes that can work as some sort of extra exhaust or something. Then if I look at my previous drawing, here we had like cross hatches like that. So let me just strengthen these interior lines a little bit. They have seats. No, so there wasn't much more than this, but this here is technically window, so I should watch out there. And then I can come with my crosshatch here, and this would be the interior. And now just add detail and strengthen lines where there wasn't detail or strong enough lines before. These cables, they can be thicker or they can be just lines as they go further away from the camera. Okay, now I'm gonna do a bit of erasing. Let's get rid of the redness. And now just make more lines strong, add something. So for example, here I had an under structure which I think worked better than just without it, because then the whole thing is a bit more tied together. The more you draw, the more you exercise, the better of a feeling you get what is and what isn't balanced out. And I'm not saying that I have a good feeling, but I do have some sort of feeling, so I try to act on it. And in this case, because I want to push it a little bit in the background, well in this case below the car, I'm also gonna add a bit of soft cross hatching, and here it can become a little bit darker as well. I also want to make these lines here just a little bit thicker, because they're overlapping. And as we know, overlapping lines should be a little bit thicker. You can add a bit of crosshatch on this side as well, just to push it to the background, and same here. Just gently fade out, something like that. These small little indicator lamps on the side I always like. Just something that indicates the turning of the shape there. Alright, I decided to add a couple of these sort of effect things that should suggest that something is happening with these engines. Some sort of anti-gravity field or some sort of distortion in time-space. I don't know yet. But I think it sort of works. But yeah, this is the car that I drew. It was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed this video as well. And see you very soon in the next video. Bye-bye!